Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And in this very special live stream, we are going to be celebrating International Women's in Tabletop Month. Women's in Tabletop Month. That's
Multiple.
like
more than
double
one.
plural. All right. I'm John Caspian. I'll be hosting, and today we have Ada on the left, Morgan in the middle, and Rachel on the right. So we're going to talk about their stories, and then, I'll be the host, so I'll segue in different topics and stuff like that. So to begin with, I want to talk to y'all about, or tell me about your stories and how you got into tabletop gaming. So we'll start off with Ada.
I started my first experience with anything resembling like modern tabletop gaming was Magic the Gathering back when I was like 9 in 1994. I got into D&D and things like that in middle school, so like late 90s, and then it's just kind of spiraled out of control since then. I'm now a Magic judge, which makes me qualified to talk about that, and the only thing I feel qualified to talk about, but that's okay. I've been doing the judging thing for about 4 years now.
Nice. Okay, cool. Morgan.
I grew up video gaming, and through some super awesome nerd fellowship communities, I was introduced to Warhammer 40K, which was my intro. So instead of like dipping my toe in the water, I just went running off of a skyscraper and cannonballed. So that is perpetuated into a few other tabletop-based games, some board games, and then one or two RPGs.
Okay. Nice. And Rachel, how about you?
My first exposure to tabletop games, I was little, and like Morgan, I started out in video games, and sometimes would see these like mysterious nerdy shops, and I'm like, what are all these cool people doing? I'm too short to see on the table, but they're having fun. And so as I got older, when I was in high school, my friend was like, have you ever played Pathfinder? And I was like, no. And
now you could see on the tables.
Now I can see the tables, and now I can get to the tabletop. And ever since then, I've really gotten into D&D and explored the vast, wonderful world of board games that is not the 4 games I grew up with. And even was on my own little podcast for a while there. We were Tales of the Wayfarer on RPTV, so play a lot of D&D.
Nice. So then, the industry is, known for being mostly male-dominated, for now. So then, what is y'all's, experience getting into tabletop gaming?
I mean, especially with 40K getting in, I didn't see another woman playing 40K until I went to my first Atlanta Warzone tournament, and there were only 2. So until I started coming to Giga-Bites a bunch, I didn't know other ladies did. It was weird, and then I was almost kind of like this weird unicorn rolling dice at the table because people were like, "Oh my gosh, it has ovaries." It was crazy.
Ada, how about you?
So for me, my story is a little bit different than probably either of theirs because so full disclosure, I'm trans, and the whole nature of that meant that everything I did up until I was about 23, I was male presenting. So I never experienced the whole oh my gosh, it's a girl in a gaming store. I never experienced that except through from the other side. So when I took a break from gaming while I was in South Carolina doing a master's degree, I came back. I had really started my transition in earnest, and then it really just opened my eyes to how different everything was from the other side. A lot of things I took for granted just disappeared, particularly as a Magic player. Magic players are notorious for basically not believing anything anyone says and being skeptical of everything. If you say something in a Magic game, your opponent will doubt it, or if you say, oh, this is how this card works, an opponent will call a judge. And it felt quadrupled because now I was a girl, and obviously I don't know anything about games. And that was part of what spurred me to become a judge, was so that I had some kind of mantle of authority, so I could say, hey, this is, I have this kind of badge. It says I know what I'm talking about.
Good old uterus handicap.
But yeah, it was really enlightening to just kind of like, I knew that it was a problem when I was younger, but I never really understood how fully, like, how big a problem it was until later in my life.
Okay. Huh. And Rachel, how about you?
Well, I do a lot of D&D, and I find a lot of players who will play characters that may not be, like, I know some of my guy friends played girl characters, but I know a lot of my, like, girl nerd friends love D&D, and so much of it, like, you can make it whatever kind of game you want. Like, my friend did this, like, spooky, like, haunted house one shot, and then I did this sugar-coated nightmare where everything was gingerbread monsters. So, like, you can really let yourself have fun. And I know when I first got into Pathfinder with my friend who introduced me, they were like, "Oh, you're just bringing your girlfriend along. Oh, whatever. Yeah, she'll be here for a minute and then leave." But while I wasn't in the group very long, they eventually were like, "Oh, you actually know the numbers on the shiny
click clacks."
Ooh. And I'm like, "Yes, I know the numbers and the pencils and the words you told me." So
I use my brain real good.
yeah. So it was a little bit of an adjustment to make them be like, "Yes, I want to play the magic stuff. I love Lord of the Rings." I would have a sword at the time. I didn't have a sword, and now I have like 4. But you know, yeah. Having a sword helps. It always helps.
So then, with Giga-Bites, we pride ourselves on being a very welcoming store, very welcoming community. What about Giga-Bites has been the difference for y'all in terms of how a typical game store is, maybe, or if you were to go to a random game store, right, and you'd never seen it before, what is the feeling that you would have going into there versus coming into Giga-Bites?
Well, I think, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I feel like, and she's not here right now, but we have a manager named Nasha, and she does so much to make the store just, like, welcoming and, like, pretty. Like, we'll have a different theme for different months, and she'll be like, "Yeah, let's hang up Christmas lights. Let's make this place look like a vacation." And, like, an eye for detail.
Yeah.
So she'll, like, make it be, like, a nice place.
Also, like, David Fenn is, like, a genius when it comes to running a gaming store. And the cool thing is, when you walk in, all of the play tables are up front. So, especially, like, on an afternoon, whether it be, like, a Monday or a Wednesday, depending on what game is centered around that day, when you walk in, you'd only have to go, like, 4 or 5 steps to see somebody like you. Like, there's just so much, like, it's so inclusive that, like, you walk in and there's D&D tables over here. Some people are playing Dust, some people playing Age of Sigmar, all the card people.
All the card people. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Are in their blue room doing their mysterious card things. That's one thing I haven't gotten into. So I imagine that's what people who like sports hear when I talk about tabletop games, is when you guys talk about cards, I'm like...
And then I magic.
Yeah, Planeswalker, magic, monster, Planeswalker.
That's me in soccer. I'm like, great. They kicked it toward the goal? Yay.
Sport ball.
Yeah, but it's cool. Like, you can walk in and, like, seeing, like, because Ada's always worked here, to my knowledge. I mean, I think she just came with a store. But, like, coming in and having people that I can relate to, it makes it so much less terrifying to try new things.
Another thing that I think definitely helps, and this is something that was true even before I worked here, which, no, I haven't worked here forever, but it feels like it's been forever.
Are you sure?
I've just always been here, as my memory deceives me. But one thing is that there's always been a woman working, as far as I know. And that's made a big difference to me, just because, like we've said, it's a traditionally male-dominated space, and so having someone, and again, maybe this is like, the whole me being a judge thing, but it's like, having someone that looks like you or that you feel like you can relate to being in a position of authority, working at the store, being a judge, whatever. And so you can approach them and say, "Hey, what's going on?" So you don't have to go to this person that maybe doesn't understand your story. That's a big part.
Right.
to me.
And like one thing when I was coming here as a customer, one thing I never experienced here is what I've come across at a few other gaming stores. Not that I shop at other gaming stores anymore. No, but before I worked here and I was shopping at other gaming stores, walking in, having a salesperson going, "Oh, are you getting something for your boyfriend? Are you getting something for your husband? Like, oh, what does your son play?" And I'm like, I will crush you.
Yeah, that's a very common kind of like microaggression. You see it a lot in Magic in the like how long have you been playing or when did you start playing? Because it's like it's expectation that you're a new player, even if like I've been playing Magic for 25 years now and it seems impossible. But like I still get that kind of like, if I lose for whatever reason, it's like, oh, you must be new. How long have you been playing kind of thing? And there's a lot of that kind of like subtle condescension towards women that I think like happens to men but doesn't happen as much.
I've seen it in one of my older jobs. I worked at a craft store, and you get a lot of like drag along husbands where like the wife would be like, "Oh, look at this, look at that, look at that," and he's like, "Uh-huh, uh-huh." And sometimes we would find one of those husbands without their wives, and they would just look around and be like a lost deer. But I'm still like, help them. Maybe they might get into knitting. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the cool thing. Like with Giga-Bites, we have such a giant board gaming demo section, and board gaming is the gateway drug for a lot of people because
Catan specifically.
Catan specifically.
Catan
because
specifically.
It's one of those games like it's easy, it's simple. You can crush your opponents.
You can lie to your friends.
Yeah.
Oh my
God. And with board gaming, it's not deceptive like, here, take this shiny plastic crack and shiny click clacks home. Like, it's look at this simple game. Like everybody grew up playing Yahtzee or Monopoly or Life or Candyland. And I'm just like, look, this is look at this artwork. And speaking of like artwork, Wingspan, which is flying off the shelves right now, is I didn't even mean to do that. Yeah.
That was a good one.
Quite literally flying off the shelves is, completely designed and illustrated by a group of women. And it's one of the top games of 2019. Like the artwork's amazing, the play's amazing. I mean, it even has a dice tower that looks like a birdhouse. But you also you learn things while playing it, even if you're not a super bird specialist like Emily. Like you can walk away. Yeah, I called you out. You can walk away learning new cool facts. And we talked about a little bit more on our live stream this morning. But it's like birds. Yeah, it's awesome. And you can send somebody home with something simple like that, and they start to get the itch.
My mom is really bad about Catan. We brought it over one time, and she's like, "What is this?" And now we play it every time we're down there, Mom. It's Easter, let's play. Oh, it's Thanksgiving. I'm like, Mom, give Catan a break. And she taking her own spin on things is fun. Like there's a rule in Catan where if you roll a 7, there's a piece that's supposed to be a thief. My mom always plays it as a nice thing. So whoever rolls a 7, she's like, okay, that person gets to pick the person who has the least amount of stuff, one kind of item to give them. So it's just like a magic fairy godmother that floats around the board, and we're like, all right, why not?
Oh, I was expecting instead of a robber, it was like this poor homeless person you have to donate to him.
No, but board games are the easiest way because the cool artwork, the cool pieces, the cool concept, and then once you start playing board games, a lot of this stuff doesn't seem anywhere near as scary.
Yeah. Okay.
And painting minis is a really good gateway as well.
The really good thing about board games is that they're self-contained. For Magic, you open a booster and you get a bunch of cards, and then you're like, okay, what do I do with this? You need more cards, and you're like, what? I just bought cards. What do you mean? Or for Warhammer, it's like, oh, I bought this cool tank for my army, and it's like, okay, but you need foot soldiers too, and you need this and you need that. And it's like, it feels like this insurmountable wall that you never have enough stuff. But for board games, you just get the one thing, and it's self-contained, and you don't have to do anymore. I think that's part of what makes it a good entry into the world of tabletop.
Okay, so then people might be watching from all over the world. What can people do for their community to make it more welcoming?
Don't assume. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the more that I've played, especially tabletop war games, there's a guy that has a cute painted light up Tyranid army. That's great. Every woman I know, with the exception of one, with her heart ray guns for her Eldar, like, they're out for blood. Like, don't you assume anything. Actually, do assume. It makes us conquering you way easier. But oh look, it's little girl in her plastic models, and I'm here for blood.
There was a lady who had a whole army that was painted Lisa Frank style, and it was a lot of like turquoise and rainbows, and I was like, oh, like she showed it to me, and she's like, I love it, and it was like, I love it.
Yeah, like I used a purple, like a lime green and purple army of Dark Eldar a couple of years back to absolutely murder this guy and his Imperial Guard.
Nice.
And he was like, I'll take it easy on you, won't bring the manticores because you're a girl. And I'm like, okay.
Bring the manticores. Bring it on.
Yeah,
Bring those pie
so
plates.
definitely not assuming. Having representation in a store to begin with, like it can be an employee or even just like a regular, like having someone around in the store to like even just one person can make it feel like the difference between one and none is so big when it comes to having representation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a big thing. And then also another thing I would say is there's this like kind of problem, and in the Magic community it's been discussed a lot because there's been a recent surge of women getting into professional Magic. And it's and in social science, I guess, maybe, I don't know, I'm not an anthropologist. It's called the ripple effect, where like a woman in like a minority of any kind in a situation where they're a minority are kind of like expected to like represent that their entire minority because they're the only one in the room that belongs to that group. So like
okay.
a woman at a Magic tournament, like if she does well, it's it's whatever. But if she does poorly, it's because women aren't good at Magic. And the same thing for 40K, and the same thing for board games and whatever. And so I think it's important to encourage, to discourage people from making comments like disparaging women in gaming, disparaging, negative comments about that, because and being sure that you're being welcoming towards everyone in the store, women especially because of the whole minority thing, but also just other minority groups, because you don't want, the last thing you want if you want to have a welcoming store is you don't want, there's a lot you can control as like employees and as store owners, but the last thing you want is someone else at the store saying something that drives that woman away.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So even if it's not like the one lady on staff that day, like having gentlemen or other regulars be like nice. Not to say, oh, you have to have only nice people in all times. No one can ever be any kind of less than perfect.
I'd never get hired.
But just like having an air of like respect for like anyone who does come in. Like even kids. I know a lot of kids since school has come out. Like we've got them every day, and they're like, "Ooh, what is this? Ooh, what is that?" Teach your kids, the ones who come in. Like, don't be like, touch that. Be like, that's a dice, or like, be careful, that's expensive. Don't be like, no.
Right. And, I mean, speaking of just having like nice people in, and since he's watching the stream now, like huge shout out to David Bashington, because he's
I don't know you, but hi.
He's here a lot. Like I know him from the D&D community, but he is amazing in the fact that he sent us the information, because I didn't even know there was an international, Women in Tabletop Day. That's something I've never heard of until yesterday. And so it's super exciting, especially like Ada gets to celebrate twice this month. Yeah. We all get to celebrate twice this month. Like I'm so hyped up about it because, my partner has 3 kids, 2 of which are beautiful young ladies. One's 11 and one's 14. And not only working in the gaming community have they realized that it's okay to like it's okay to mature and not have to grow up. Like you can still be an adult and go to work and come home and play with your tiny little plastic toys and then take them to a store and crush some adults. Like that's totally cool and acceptable, and it's okay to be nerdy and it's fine. Like there's an entire community of people like this that are willing to support you. And like the coolest thing ever is like bringing the girls in here, especially like Berkeley. He's 7. He's the best. But, like bringing them in here, it's just like instead of having like 1 or 2 people go like, oh, there's kids at the store. Like everybody's like, oh my gosh, small humans, let me educate you. This is D&D. This is the great Father Corn. Like, let Papa Nurgle tell you how to live your life, you know? And it's just like every facet of the store, whether it be like the people that work here or just the customer bases, like they're so warm and welcoming and inviting. And it's like, it makes me all warm and fuzzy inside and I got goosebumps. Just because like, it's the kind of community we have, and it just makes it like, because I know like I can bring the kids up here and they're in excellent hands.
Yeah, I think that's
except for you ultramarine players, you stay away from the
ultramarine players.
I was actually just going to kind of build on that and just saying that having encouraging positive behavior rather than negative behavior, even not even just with kids and women, but just in general, like makes a community so much more welcoming. Like there's a lot of stores that where people are really like standoffish or they don't communicate, whereas you know here, even with like I've seen it on both sides, the Magic side and the miniature side. You know, someone will come up, they've never been in here before, and you know they just immediately get asked, hey, what do you play? Oh, you play 40K. What's your army? Or you play Magic? You know, what kind of deck do you have? Like there's just a lot of like inviting welcoming questions that try and naturally bring people into the community, and I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
For building community, I know in America we have a website called Meetup, and where like the store isn't connected with them, like licensed
we're not
or legal
sponsored
or whatever.
or anything.
But having some kind of way to like reach out for like folks in the community who are like, hey, I'm new to the area, how do I find friends? You might want to start a Facebook page or a website for your store, because we have a lot of folks who just post on ours. They're like, I want to play 40K tomorrow. Who's up for it? And they can find new folks to play with that way.
One thing about having a Facebook page for the store is you can also make groups for the store and like associate those groups. Like you can be an admin for the group and associate it with the store. So like we have the Giga-Bites Tabletop Gaming Group. We have the RPG role-playing games at Giga-Bites Group. We have the TCG games at Giga-Bites Group. And those are all kind of affiliated with our store page. And we have tons of people saying, oh, hey, you know, in any of these things, I'm looking for a game. I'm looking for a group to play this, you know, and that's a good way to get more people into the store, because even someone who's just looking into it or hasn't made the dive yet might say, oh, hey, there's all these people looking for games. Maybe I could be one of them.
Yeah, like, and our Giga champions too. You guys are the best. Having people in your community that are dedicated to growing a game within that community and being there not only to run a game like full force, but also being able to tone it down a few notches and bring in like the noobs. So, you know, because I'm still a noob with a bunch of things. Like I have a deck of Magic cards and I've never played because honestly, go on, learn me something. Like, go learn me. Like it's like walking over to like another side of the store, you know, can be a little bit intimidating because there's a lot of people that take this really serious.
Yeah.
And so it's like walk up with my little deck of cards and be like, excuse me, I'm a noob. Can somebody please not crush me? Box.
Just casually calling out other employees.
You're welcome. Look, they had the date and time for this live stream. They just didn't show up. But having people in the store, because honestly, like the coolest thing is seeing some of these games in action, being able to come in and like watch people play them is super neat. And then everybody's just super approachable. Like the kids wanted to do a D&D game, and I've never played D&D. So I'm like the minority on that end, but it's super cool because I was working in the middle of a shift and I was like, hey, is there anybody in the store that could run like a D&D game for 3 kids? And Phil automatically was like, me. and then had character sheets and everything ready to go in like an hour.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, it was amazing. But it's aw, are you gonna baby me through a D&D game, David? Because I'm a
I'll be your party member. Yeah. I'll heal you as many times as you die.
a lot. If it's anything like 40K. Yeah, just so you guys know, my dice roll is absolutely garbage.
Yeah.
That's the joy of D&D. You can just buy more dice. Just build a collection and be like, oh, we're going to use these today.
I'm such a dice goblin.
I don't think anybody that actually calls themselves a part of the gaming community gets by without being a dice goblin. Like, I know there are some people that show up and like, I'll just borrow somebody else's. And then there are people like Anthony that steal my dice every time we play games.
Don't do that.
Another call out. Nice.
Be sure to sell dice at your store.
Yeah, I mean, and then the coolest thing is there's so many different brands of dice, like, and there's so many different colors, and some are shiny, and some are not, and some are clear, and some are opaque, and some have glitter, and some are just metallic, and you really have to have them.
If you get dice and a matching nail color, it brings a real strong energy to the game. Like, people are like,
Did
whoa.
not know that.
She's got matching. Whoa.
I believe that.
Also, and this also for you ladies that are into tabletop gaming, you know the decals that come in your boxes of minis that you just don't use? I take them to my nail salon and have them put on my nails, and then I put on top
Really?
of them. So if I'm really serious about crushing somebody,
Put that ultramarine decal on there?
Oh no, no, Dark Eldar only. Don't you put that bad juju on me, Ricky Bobby.
The Dark Eldar ultramarine symbol?
Yeah, anti-heresy.
Okay, cool. So, anything else y'all want to talk about for International Women's Month?
Definitely share this with your friends.
Yes.
Just because you are not an avid gamer now doesn't mean you can't come out and play a few games. I know there's a couple of days in the month of June and July that we're going out in the community to do some demo games. And I really hope to see a lot of ladies out there. It's just a good community. And I always I tell Jason all the time, you know, the more your kids are involved in a gaming store, the less they'll be able to afford drugs.
That's the one. That's
That
the
is
one.
true.
So it's great for raising children.
One thing I would like to say is that there's been a lot of talk about like crushing people and destroying them on the battlefield, but I think there's an important aspect that I think I'm trying to think of how to words this because I'm not good at words. I think it should be said at some point during this live stream that it's okay to not be like an ultra serious, ultra competitive player. Like just because, you know, like I mentioned, you know, a lot of women are getting into pro magic, or because we mentioned that, you know, the women here at 40K are, you know, out for blood. I don't think that means that everyone has to be that. Like the games are competitive, sure, but that doesn't mean that you have to be all in, win or die trying kind of player.
Right.
Like there's different levels of play, and they should all be encouraged and accepted. Just because someone isn't, you know, as cutthroat at a game, for example, as someone else, doesn't make them any less of a part of the community.
Right.
I like that. That's very well put. Thank you. It's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a competitive player. I mean, I'll play in a tournament every once in a while, but I'm all about having fun. It's about the laughs, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the point of playing the game.
Giga-Bites.
Giga-Bite.
Yeah.
Like-
I start to say, a game should be fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you'd think so. And then every now and then I go to a Magic tournament and I sit across an opponent who's land, go,
They got their poker face.
land, go.
Yeah.
And it's kind of I kind of feel like it's gotten to some point where people feel like when they get to be at a certain level of play that like they're not allowed to have fun anymore because it has to be all serious and all competitive and only about the winning. And I think that should be, I don't want to say discouraged, but I don't think that should be seen as the norm. I don't think that everyone who who has like a winning record at a game needs to be all stoic and sour-faced about it.
No.
Gotcha.
It's like in D&D. You can have a dungeon master who's like, all right, we're going to go through this dungeon. We're going to kill this dragon. You guys are going to get experience points like this. And then it's going to happen. It's going to be super cool. And then you're going to have players who will totally destroy that plan. But then you also have DMs who are like, sure, let's go for it. And like they'll have a couple of beers and they're like, we're in tunnel and you mad flump. What do you want to do? And it's like, what?
I'm
like,
that kind of DM.
Go talk to the flump. What do you want to say? They're like, what's a flump? Roll for intelligence or whatever. And so you have different kind of games for different kinds of people. But it is really important to bring up the fluffy, gentle side, like the nice Catan game with my mom. I talked with another family who were like, we don't play Catan anymore. And I'm like, oh? And they're like, well, Casey gets a little competitive. And I'm like, okay, Casey.
We have one of those at home.
Oops.
A lot of groups have that. I think an employee who might have been mentioned on this stream before, but I won't call him out again, has mentioned that he doesn't get invited back to board game nights. And I think a good solution for that...
I invite him. So my
I have
child,
to, but hold on. So I think a good solution for that is to, if you have someone like that in your group, if you're playing in a group and you find that one person is just like all out competitive, gotta crush everyone else, and it's like there's nothing wrong with that style of play, but if the rest of the group doesn't mesh with that, cooperative games are where you want to be. Games like XCOM, the board game, games like Arkham Horror. I'm only thinking of really long games for some reason.
Mansions of Madness.
Pandemic's really good. Mansions of Madness. Games like that where the group is working towards a goal, and that way both the competitive player can still, min-max and, spike and grind their way to victory, but the other players can have a sense of appreciation for it because it's not being used against them. They don't feel like they have to rise up to that level necessarily in order to, or match that fervor for competitiveness in the same game.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, our middle child absolutely loves him.
Okay.
Because that's who she wants to be. So instead of saying, I don't want to play against him, she wants him invited to every board game night.
Nice.
She wants to befriend him. She wants to learn from him. She wants to emulate him. And then she plans to crush him.
That's quite an aspiration.
And
how old is she?
11. And she's
got
about
some lofty goals, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but hey, it's all about dreaming big, and I'm all for it. Like,
yeah, no.
But you do bring an excellent point. I think we, maybe not in this order, but do exemplify the levels of taking a game too serious, maybe. And I'm probably on the far extreme end of that spectrum because Mouth of Blood. But that's not to say I can't play toned down. I do demo games as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, I like to win.
Yeah, I feel like we do have a good
we have a good spectrum.
Like cheese plate of ladies here.
Yeah, I'm the spicy meatball.
I'm the double cream brie. And you're like hearty cheddar.
Yeah, I'm just like right in the middle. I'm a mild cheddar, not too sharp.
No, you're like classic, welcoming.
Yeah. Which, with that being
I'm
said,
loving the cheese, and I'm getting hungry now.
Yeah, I think like with that being said, especially the three of us and the many other people that work here, we're always down for new people to show up and ask for a demo game. All of us specialize in different aspects of the gaming community, and I think that all of us would totally be down for noobs, because if if Ada wants to baby me through a game of Magic, I think she's prepared for anything.
Yeah. A couple of things. One person in the chat said, play the game competitively, play your opponent respectfully, and have a good time. And I think that's very good.
Unless you play Kevin King.
Always with the call-outs. The other thing I would say is that, and this is a thing that's come in from. This is going to be Magic terminology, but in Magic, there's this kind of psychotyping that the people who make the game have made. And there's three types of players. There's Timmies, Johnnies, and Spikes. And Timmies are in it for the emotional ride. They're there for the big wins and for the exciting plays. Johnny is there for the brew. They're there to express themselves creatively by making their own decks, by getting their wacky creation to do its own thing. And then there's the Spikes who are just there to win. And I think we kind of exemplify those archetypes, but also it's important. That's one of the things I ask a lot of people when I ask them, like when I'm working on the Magic side and someone's like, hey, I need help building a deck and this is what I want it to do. I'll say, okay, what do you want, or if I'll say, what do you want your deck to do? And if they say they want to win big, then I'll point them in a direction. If they say, I just want to win, I don't care. I just want to win as fast as I can, as much as I can. Okay, fine. I'll point you in a different direction. But I think that kind of thing, and also like matching up players with similar ideologies can help out a community, because that way you don't have the Spikes just crushing the Timmies all the time when the Timmies just want to have fun and experience the emotional thrill of the game, and the Spikes are like, I win again.
We have a set of regulars who play D&D, and they're all a set of min-max. And in D&D,
What does that mean?
min-maxers is when you get like maximum stats, ultra best, super all the, like you're trying to make the strongest, bestest all good, and you don't, like that's your focus.
The min part of the min-maxing is throwing your minimum numbers into things that don't matter. So if you're a fighter, you throw your lower numbers into intelligence and charisma, because all you're there to do is hit things.
You done hit the thing good with the stick.
Yeah.
But they have a whole table of them, and that's really great because usually if there's like one min-maxer in a like average-ish group, what is an average group? But there's usually one like really passionate min-maxer, then everyone's like, but since they all have each other, they can play really well together and they all have fun. So that's important. Also, I wanted to say this earlier and I forgot. A way to like welcome people in, and we were talking about the different types of employees you could have. Remembering that you're the face of your game store. When you're an employee, whether you're stocking stuff or you're, bringing people their food, if you guys have food at your place, food is good. But whenever you interact with a guest, and you might be tired, and they might be tired, and everybody might have been having the worst day possible, just remembering that they're people, and like, they're trying to learn, and you could either give them a great experience and be like, yeah, I might try D&D, those guys were cool, or be like, wow, they were really like short with me because I didn't know what a dice was. So it's a good way to remember that you're the face.
Yeah.
You're the first thing people see. Like, they recognize that. They might look at all the pretty art on the books and look at all the pretty things and go, wow, this is cool. But it'll leave them about the same experience. And a lot of it depends on the people. So you're the face. You're the last face they see when they buy all their stuff and leave. You're the last aftertaste in their mouth. But remember that. Cheese analogy.
Shout out to the person who said, "Hoi, I'm Timmy." That's a great Undertale reference. Also, this is maybe a weird reference suggestion, because the 4th edition of D&D was not very well received. But I think that the Dungeon Master's Guide, in particular for 4th edition, has a similar listing of both character archetypes and player archetypes that any DM can use to figure out how to make a game run more smoothly, because you have the power gamers, the min-maxers, and if you have one of those or two of those in a group alongside an actor who just wants to play up the dramatic flair bits, and then you have the instigator who just wants to kick down the next door and fight the next thing, and you have all of these different people. How do you encourage one? Like, how do you make sure that they're all engaged at the same time? And so this is 4th edition, like I said, was not very well received by the DM community at large, but the DM's guide actually, I think, had a lot of valuable insights to that. So I would, not only just for a game, but also for like a community, just like understanding what motivates players, I think is a really good thing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Wow, y'all, this has been an awesome conversation. It's incredible. So for anyone that wants to come play Giga-Bites, it's super open, welcoming, friendly. So come get your game in, no matter who you are. You got games available at Giga-Bites and people to play it with, which is amazing. So thanks y'all for coming on and sharing your stories and your experience and your suggestions on stuff. And no matter where you are in the world, start building your community to be more open and welcoming. And you'll start seeing more people playing, and you'll have more fun. And that's the most important part, is playing games to have fun. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and hope you have a great weekend. There's plenty of events going on at Giga-Bites, and plenty of games to be had. So thanks, y'all, for joining us, and we'll see you around the tabletop. Bye, everybody.